of the day, small nuclear reactors get traction. Private players to offer captive sites for power projects. Now, what has happened is that first you need to be aware about the nuclear technology. Now, to understand nuclear technology, you can just Google it or probably Flex it, or use ChatGPT to understand nuclear technology. You should be able to understand how does a nuclear power plant operate, what is the fuel that is used, how is the enrichment of the fuel happens, why is it called a chain reaction. Once the chain reaction starts, then how does it not become an atom bomb. So there is something called as control rods. What are these control rods made of? So you'll study that they're made of boron, and then why is uranium used as a fuel, and the byproduct is plutonium, which can also be used for nuclear bombs. So that entire process, first of all, you should be aware about that this is the process of a nuclear power plant. Then the next step is to read that what are the different kinds of fuels of nuclear power plant. So you have thorium based, you have uranium based, you have plutonium based. Different types of fuels are used in nuclear power plants. Then moving on, you need to understand that what are the kinds of nuclear power plants that are used in India, and the kind of nuclear power plants that are used in India is based on the terminology is based on the kind of the kind of water that they use, cooling agent that they use. So there's something called as heavy water nuclear reactor. This is how, or we have light water nuclear reactors as well. So what are these different types of heavy water nuclear reactors that we have? Now, having studied all of that, let us now, or once you do that, you will have a broad understanding of what this is. Then you will be able to understand that this is what we are trying to get into, which is small modular reactors. Now, instead of having large reactors, we are planning to have these small reactors from 30 megawatts to 300 megawatts. Right now what we have is the large heavy water reactors that we have are around 700 megawatt heavy water reactors. But essentially we started with small reactors, and then we moved on to big reactors. Now since what happens is that the grid, now you have to understand that every part of India has an electrical grid, and that grid needs constant supply of electricity. Now the constant supply of electricity till now is only being assured by thermal power plants, which is all of you know, which is a very polluting source, because we are going to burn coal because of it. Now instead of this, what we plan to do is that we want to replace it with renewable energy. But renewable energy, the problem is that there's no stability. Why there's no stability? Because the winds might not be there, or the solar power in the nights is not there. So what we need is a constant base source. So we need a constant base source which will give us an assured amount of energy. And for that, what we are planning to have is small reactors, which basically being operated by these private players, and in the captive area where the major power plants, where nuclear power plants, in that area itself small power plants will operate. So this is something that we are looking forward to, and there has been a considerable amount of interest coming from Russia with respect to this. Having said that, now what is not given in this article is that the world is moving away from nuclear power plants because of the risks that are there. Now you might not be aware about it, but in 2012 there was a huge tsunami in Japan, because of which there was a nuclear power plant called as Fukushima. Now this Fukushima power plant got flooded, and because of this the entire region was contaminated. Radioactive contamination was there. So after this, what had happened was, because there is 1 in a million risk of this, and then you might have heard about something called as Chernobyl in 1986. So there is 1 in a million risk of crisis with respect to these all these these nuclear power plants. Therefore, the world is moving away from it. For example, the amount of energy which is being produced by US or by France or by Germany through nuclear power plants is all reducing. In fact, Germany has already phased out and France has already phased out its nuclear power plants. So in that context, now what we are doing is we are expanding our, because our energy needs are quite huge. So we are expanding our need and we are switching towards these modular these small modular reaction plants, and Russia and China are already doing it. They have already done it live. Two of their plants are operating. One started in 2020 in Russia, the other started in 2022 in China. So, but at the same point of time, as I told you, that there is possibility of private sector and startups in this sector, which can make it safe, which can also, deploy technologies for the future. And the idea is that the SMR would typically account for one third of the generation capacity for of most traditional nuclear power plants, and it will give operational flexibility as well. And then this can be seen as pooled together for meaningful electricity production, and to provide base load to the grids, and to balance out the vagaries of the renewable energy. So this is why this energy is important. But more than that, you should be aware about the entire process of nuclear power plant, and the fuels of the nuclear power plant, and the control rods, and the cooling mechanism. How do you cool down the entire nuclear reactor? So all of this is very important for you to understand. Then then there is one more news that needs to be covered. Yes. So we have read about Anna Sebastian Perel. So we've been talking about the ethics of working hard. In fact, last time round, and if you've seen the essay topics this time, you can see that you can add, they're so broad topics that you can add anything to it, for related to movies, related to instances that are going around your world, around ourselves. So you should have a positive example, you should have a negative example, you should know how to argue in favor of that particular sentence, or one that quote that has been given, and you should be able to argue against that as well. So all different kinds of information is helpful. And in one of those is basically the story of Anna Sebastian Perel, who died of a cardiac arrest recently. And her mother had alleged that it is the work pressure that was put on her by EY that led to her death. And the article is basically a eulogy for and the kind of life that she lived. But at the same point of time, what is more important for us is having a work life balance. The art of learning to say no when it's more than what we can bear. And the idea that we should not glorify a kind of a distorted work life balance, where we do not get enough sleep, where we do not get enough peace of mind. So this is, and as we were talking about in that article of comparison, that we have started worshipping this kind of a lifestyle in urban areas. And we have created those hacks of 5 minute kind of do something for 5 minutes, and or say just the way that we meditate. That 5 minute can help, but it is not a solution to your overall problems, until unless you maintain a healthy lifestyle. So this is with respect to this. Then there is another article, if you want to read, you can read it, that a number of people who emigrate out of India to are yet to return from Southeast Asia. So basically, states with highest number of visitors who did not return from Southeast Asia. So people who went out into Southeast Asia, and then there is a lot of report of cyber slavery that has happened. especially in terms of Cambodia and Vietnam, where people have been duped for that they will be called for doing certain kinds of online jobs, and then in those areas they are their passports are taken, and they're forced to work and forced to do frauds with others. So this is with respect to basically a report which was basically being sought by the ministry, because of the fact that there were a lot of people who were trapped in Southeast Asian country as cyber slaves. So you can read about this particular crime as well. Then let's move on to the next the meat of the newspaper, folks. Or before that, we will have, I think, the explained page. Yes. Now comes the explained economics page, where we have the first article as rice variety to curb farm fires. Now you must be aware that see, you have three seasons of growing farm produce in India. You have the Kharif season, you have the Rabi season, and then you have the Zaid season, which is between Kharif and Rabi. Now, typically, the Kharif period, the season starts from the onset of monsoon in June, and then the harvest should happen sometime in the first week of October, and then you have in November, by mid of November, you should have the Rabi crop ready, which can again then be harvested sometime in February, March. Now this is how the typical cycle happens. Now all of us have seen what is called as parali, or basically the stubble burning. Now the idea of stubble burning is because of the fact that there is a crop called as Pusa 44, which is one of the first choice of farmers, especially in Haryana. And what happens is that this Pusa 44 crop is basically developed. First of all, it is developed by the Indian Agriculture Research Institute. Now it takes around 155 to 160 days to grow, and as compared to another kind of variety, which is PR 126, which is done by Punjab Agriculture University, which takes only 123 to 125 days. But at the same point of time, the Punjab variety is only going to give you around 32 quintals of rice per acre, but the Pusa is going to give you around 35 to even 40 35 to even 40 this thing quintals of rice per acre. Now the thing is that this Pusa 44 takes around 30 more days, and because it takes 30 more days, what happens is that the gap between the Kharif and the Rabi crop, remember I told you that the Rabi crop of wheat or whatever you want to do must be ready by you should ready the sowing by the second week of November. But if the Kharif crop is going to take longer, especially in case of Pusa 44, if it's going to take longer, then what will happen? Then the farmer will be basically forced to burn the crop, burn the residue, so that he can clear the entire field quickly. And because he can clear the entire field quickly by burning it, then he can use the soil to basically use for the wheat crop or the Rabi crop. Now, so this is a problem which is starting with Pusa 44, and Pusa 44 is basically one of the favorite choices of farmers. Now, what has happened is that the government of Punjab has actually banned Pusa 44, because it knows that if farmers use Pusa 44, then what they are going to do is they're going to do parali, and therefore it's going to cause pollution. Now, but still, even after banning, you should be aware that farmers, what they do is that even if the supply is not available, of seeds is not available, what they can do is they can use the grains from the previous season. They store the grains, and then they use those grains to further grow crops for other seasons. So this process will keep on happening. Now what we have is The Agriculture Research Institute has come up with another new variety which is called as Pusa 2090. Now Pusa 2090 is basically a cross between a rice subspecies of East Asia, which is Japonica, and the Indica variety, which is grown in the India and subtropical regions. And what it does is it basically gives the same amount of yield which the Pusa 44 does, but at the same point of time it requires lesser number of 30 lesser number of days, which gives the farmer more amount of time to basically harvest his crop, and then not to burn the crop residue, and basically weed it out and then crop his rabi crop. The alternative to this is happy seeder trucks. What the happy seeders does is that it automatically takes out the crop from the residue from the previous kharif crop, and it also at the same point of time sows the rabi crop. But happy seeders are expensive, although they are subsidized by the government, but the tractors using happy seeders are expensive, therefore not all farmers can use it. So because of all of this, the government of and the agriculture research institutes have produced this, and in coming times this might get rid of we might get rid of the entire problem of this thing parali. So this is a news that you should be aware about. Then cadavers donation needs, rules and challenges. We have a shortage of cadavers, and basically cadavers are used by science students, medical students in medical colleges, because they need bodies to dead bodies to basically operate on. And there are lesser number of people donating their bodies after death. Therefore there's a shortage with respect to this, and typically what happens is people whose bodies are unclaimed are actually used for as scavengers, which is basically poor people, and people who are basically anonymous are used, but typically people whose bodies are known, and people who donate their bodies are less. So this is with respect to this. We are going to anyways read a article on Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah in the editorial, and what has happened in Lebanon. Then there's another news that you should be aware about from a science and tech point of view. Now there is something called as stem cells. Stem cells have the ability to be converted into any particular cell through a process called pluripotency, which basically means chemically induced pluripotency, or IPC cells. So what happens with pluripotency is that suppose you have my stem cell, and with that stem cell what you can force it to do is it can become a heart, it can become a liver, it can become an intestine, it can become some kind of it can become a liver, it can become anything. So an induced pluripotency cell, and because of this a Nobel Prize was given in around 15 years ago. Now this pluripotency and totipotency, you should be aware about these two terms, pluripotency and totipotency. Now what happens with pluripotency is that if you have these stem cells. Now for example, with respect to my son, I had done was, there was a company called StemSite, and I had basically his stem cells, and in the womb there's some stem cells in the umbilical cord. So the stem cells, we have got it preserved, because in future what will happen is that the science and tech will go forward, and then you can produce any kind of organ. In fact, that is exactly what is done here as well, that stem cells from a woman has been taken, and this woman has an autoimmune disease whereby the insulin produced by pancreas is being destroyed. In pancreas there's something called as islets, which basically produce insulins, and what has happened is that the stem cells stem cells have been used from this particular person, and then outside the lab what has happened is they have been induced to basically become clusters of islets, 3D clusters of islets, and then they are injected back into the woman's abdominal muscles. And what has happened is within 2.5 months now the body is able to produce insulin. So this is this is how the scientists have used stem cells to reverse diabetes for the first time. So read about this, read about the technology behind it. It's an article, it's a topic on which UPSC has often asked questions. In fact, I clearly remember even in my last attempt there was a question on pluripotency in 2017. So it's an important news for you to study. Then the ranking strap. Now, what is this ranking strap? You might have heard about the fact that there are different kinds of rankings that are launched by different organization. In fact, all these international organizations have a fancy for coming up different kinds of rankings, and in all these rankings the developing countries are faring very poorly, and the developed countries are doing really well, and that makes one wonder that should we lived in in countries like the Nordic countries, or better off countries. Now, this article basically questions that particular process. Now, this article says is that, suppose let's take the case of global gender gap index. Now, India ranked 26th on the educational attainment in 2023, and mysteriously now we are ranking 112th on that index, on that sub index in 2024. Now what has happened in last 1 year that this index, that we have dropped around 100 ranks in this. Similarly, a lot of these indexes that we talk about, global 100 index or doing a business index, corruption perception index, so all these indexes basically just like global this thing your World Bank ease of doing business index, they are only working on 14% of Indian businesses, and they take basically now they stopped it, but earlier they were only taking references from two cities in India. So they don't capture a data large enough to capture the entire background of a wide country like India. So their sampling is very limited. But the kind of prescription that they are giving is a countrywide perception, which is problematic. So we should be first, there should not be a lazy approach while constructing an index. There should be a particular method toward it. You should specify that why certain specific indicators were chosen, and then what is the data source for that particular index. And it should not say that the data source is just World Bank or any particular organization. They should go into the primary data set and see that where is this data set being collected from. So that is very important, and the sample sizes and the sampling methodology all must be present along with the confidence intervals. Then the second is that after releasing the indices, before publishing it, there should be some kind of an expert committee and consultants to basically examine the results, whether the results are robust enough or not. And the third is that these governments should not take these reports very seriously, because each government is very different, and then the data that is being used is basically based on small data. You cannot have such wide ramifications, or such wide policy issues. For example, I mean we have data for data challenges for something called as stunting and wasting in India. Now, because of the fact that our calorie intake is based on consumption expenditure. Now, consumption expenditure is a very poor indicator of no, of calorie intake. So therefore any particular policy measure which is based on this thing, consumption data expenditure, is not going to be very robust for the entire policy making. So this is where Sonali Desai basically talks about the fact that we should take all these indicators with a pinch of salt. Then the next article, let's read this article, Dangerous Edge. Now what has happened is that you might be aware that last year in October 7, there was an attack by Israel on Hamas. There was an attack by Hamas on Israel, because of which around 1600 people were killed. But at the same point of time, after this, Israel went on a rampage, and now this entire, in last 1 year, around 41,000 people have been killed. Earlier Israel had basically demolished the entire of Gaza. Now this entire war has taken a turn, and it is now moved towards Hezbollah. And recently, the leaders of Hezbollah, the military leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, has been killed. And you should be aware about the fact that all of this is being heralded by a country called as Iran. Now, Iran is basically a Shiite state, and all these countries are actually Shia based countries, and therefore this is another dimension to this entire Middle East problem, which is a Shia Sunni problem, because UAE, Saudi Arabia, US, Israel are on one side, whereas Iran and your Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen are on the other side of all of this. So this is a wider conflict that we are seeing, and the entire region is now being jeopardized as a huge a human tragedy or humanitarian crisis of sorts. I mean, what people don't speak about is an equal or even a bigger tragedies right now happening in Sudan, which you might not have heard in newspapers. But if you read The Economist, you will probably see that a bigger tragedy is also happening in Sudan as well. Then the next article is a Tirupati lesson. Now, you must be aware that ghee, which is basically milk fat. Now, what you do is, from the milk you kind of collect the fat, and then you basically store it, and you that becomes ghee. So this milk fat is basically the most real value, or the most expensive value added thing out of milk. Now, the issue, why this issue has taken a national discourse, is because now we have found out that even the Tirupati Mandir laddus were also adulterated. Now, the issue is that the current price of milk fat is around 470 rupees per kg, which is way above the 225-130 rupees for refined palm oil, soybean and sunflower oil. Even the beef tallow is available at 80-90 rupees, and therefore because it is very easy to mix both of them, therefore this is what sells. In fact, most of the ice creams that we have in the market contain 10% fat, and most of this is vegetable oil, milk oil, and not the actual ghee. Now, the problem is to do with and the premiumness has to do with a lot with availability. Now, India basically imports around 160 lakh tons of vegetable oil, and our domestic production is only 105 lakh tons. Now, the organized dairies produce only 4 lakh liter tons of milk fat annually, which basically goes for construction of butter, ice cream, and ghee, which does not for bulk production of ghee, it does not leave us much more. So therefore, the need is to, therefore, because there is lack of milk fat available in the economy, therefore there is a lot of adulteration that happens. So it's because of the market needs that the adulteration happens, and therefore every particular product from that claims to be pure desi ghee is actually not desi ghee. And even the Tirupati itself, the annual requirement of ghee is 5,000 tons. That's equivalent of 12.2 crore liters of cow milk with 4% fat. Now, this is a huge this thing, and therefore what needs to be done is that if you are tightening the noose around ghee, then what will happen is that the prices of ghee will further increase. At the same point of time, the government can reduce all this price by at least reducing the goods and services tax on ghee, butter, and other milk fat from 12% to 5%. So this is the other part of the news. Then unlocking the retail advantage. Now this particular article basically talks about the fact that India is going to be the next retail boom. The e-commerce sector is going to grow quite fast, and it's going to become a $2 trillion sector by 2023. It's right now around 820 billion dollars. But at the same point of time, this e-commerce is going to reach around 353.25 billion dollar economy, which will help us become a $5 trillion economy. But the issue is that our logistics costs are quite high as compared to other countries like US, Singapore, China, Europe. So our logistics cost is basically 11 to 14% of our GST, whereas the global average is around 8%, and we can further reduce it because this is an average. We need to be at the lower end of this average. So for better profitability, affordability for the consumer, profit margins, all of that, we need lower costs, and that lower cost can only happen when we invest more in our logistics and e-technology and use of AI, ML, Internet of Things in this technology. Germany has one of the best examples for reliable and advanced technology integrated this thing. And for this, we need to also train our workforce to work with technology as well, and we need state of the art warehouses for this. So all of this needs to be done, and we have already had this national logistics policy, and returns have started coming because the World Bank's Logistic Performance Index, India has now reached around 38th position, another index for you. And what NLP has done is that it has led to digitalization and real-time tracking, e-documentation, and reduced delays. But what policy envisages is, just like UPI, you have unified logistics interface platform, where you have single platform for better coordination and collaboration that is going to happen. Now we have also already launched PM Gati Shakti. Now we need to take a leaf out of that, and this Gati Shakti National Master Plan, where logistic professionals can be created, skilled workforce can be created to reduce the costs of this entire process. So this is with respect to our development of this particular news. Then we also have the next news, which is food that doesn't feed. Now this is an important news because what we end up doing is we end up wasting a lot of our food. Now what has happened is that just a second, yeah. What has happened is that there is this United Nations food loss and waste awareness that is there. Now what happens is that a lot of food is after post harvest is lost, and basically the food which could have gone to improving nutrition, eliminating hunger, and basically because a lot of this food uses greenhouse gases, so we are also producing food but not utilizing it. So we observe the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste on September 29th, and this can reduce food loss wastage, can reduce the climate change mitigation, it can reduce global hunger. But at the same point of time, we need government policies, we need farm producer organization, FPOs, and custom hiring centers to do that. And the idea is that around 13% of food is globally lost, which is basically contributes to around 10% of greenhouse gases. At the same point of time, we need to reduce as a SDG goal. By the way, this is also an SDG goal. As an SDG goal, we need to reduce the food losses to by 50%, and post harvest losses in India are also huge. We lose around value worth around $18 billion worth of food we lose each year, and which can further drop if we adopt mechanization and modern storage facility. So this is something that we need to work on. The storage, the major grain storage plan, and increasing the storage capacity. The Indian government has increased the storage capacity over the last few years, but still the storage losses are happening, and custom hiring centers and FPO can help this improve better. And the last thing that needs to be taken care is jute packing material mandate, which in which all the food grains must be used in jute packing material. That can also help in basically reducing the transit and lowering the cost and storage costs. So this is all that is there. And finally, there's another article on one election, and we've already talked about this, that what are the benefits in terms of frequent elections, and then you have financial and administrative cost of elections, and then you have policy continuity that is marred because the MCC, the Model Code of Conduct, is imposed, because of which no major decisions are taken. Then voter fatigue is there because common again and again elections are happen, and then there are certain countries which already have simultaneous elections like Sweden, Indonesia, and South Africa. So all of this needs to take care, but we have our own challenges, the federal challenges that are there. But the author basically talks about the fact that the challenges and the benefits outweigh the challenges that are there. So you can read about this article, and there's one more article before we stop. Please read this article. May ease public procurement rules for innovative product manufacturers. This is one news that I want you to read on your own, and that's about it, folks. That's about it from my side for today's newspaper. We'll meet tomorrow with respect to tomorrow's newspaper. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye bye.